Hey, good morning. It's me again. Had another flashback, or another random thought popped into my head based on a drive yesterday. There was a handful of us in a car, and we came up on a brand new billboard and looked up at the picture, and it looked like one of the people in the car with us. We started laughing, and the statement was, "Hey, is that you? Isn't that you up there?" And we had a good laugh out of it, and that sent me back over 30 years to another flashback I just had that I had completely forgotten about. In 1989 and 1990, I went through flight school for the Army. I was an attack helicopter pilot in the military, and I flew Cobras, if you're old enough to remember the little skinny attack helicopters. And it's a long, lengthy, and arduous process to get into military flight school. And I made it in about 95% of the people that were in there with me were active duty members before they went to flight school. They usually don't pluck somebody off the street and go, "You're going to be a military pilot." So we had a weird collection of people that were in there with us. I was a tanker, I crewed M1 tanks, and we had, special forces guys and mechanics and electricians and artillery guys. It was everything. It was just a mixture. So it was kind of fun having that combination of people around you. About halfway through the course, which is extremely fast paced, and I'm putting that mildly, we got dragged into a classroom one day, and they checked our IDs. They literally wanted you to see your ID, and they counted us in the room, locked the door, and they rolled in there with a safe on wheels and pulled out some VHS tapes and popped them in the recorder. And it was talking about the Stinger missile, which is a portable, one-person operating anti-aircraft missile. And it talked about its development, how it worked, and what it could do and what it couldn't do. And it was a classified film, but again, this is more than 30 years ago. And at this point, the Stinger is slowly working its way to be obsolete. It's over 40 years old. Our stockpiles are conveniently being passed on to the Ukrainians right now, and they're having a field day with them. But they went through all this history of it, and they mentioned the first time one of these was ever shot in anger was in the Falklands War in 1983, and what had happened was they had trained a British guy how to teach other British guys how to do it, and the guy that was taught got killed in a helicopter. I don't know if he shot down or crashed or what, but the actual guy that was supposed to teach them how to use these, because it's not a shotgun, it's just not a point shoot, there's a process. And they had a handful of these missiles, and there was a specific spot where the Argentinians came in with it's called a Pucara. It's a twin-engine ground attack aircraft. And one of the guys somehow figured out the sequence, fired it, and shot it down. And the other ones they shot later didn't do anything, so they didn't do it right. But by mere happenstance, the first shot was effective, and that was the original. And during the course of this videos they were showing us, they showed the first shot of the Soviet-Afghan War, and I think it was 1985, I think the video came from. And what they would do is go into Afghanistan and kind of do some interviewing through an interpreter, and they would find people that they thought could figure this out, even though they're completely illiterate. And they would teach three people, a cameraman, a video camera guy, and a shooter, the guy to fire the missile, to record it. And that's exactly what they did. So we're watching this tape shot, I think, in 85, and there's two blatantly Western white guys standing there talking in accentless English to a group of people through an interpreter, and he's got a little wooden stick, and he's pointing at parts. The missile's in a case that's opened up, explaining what it does, and they're not getting it. They don't understand it. And then you hear some commotion, and everybody starts diving for cover because a Soviet Mi-24 helicopter is flying by, and it's 3/4 of a mile away, flying down this valley over here in the distance. And like I said, everybody's diving for cover because all they have are rifles. And then the camera guy spins back around. Now, there were two guys standing there. One was facing the camera talking, and the other one had his back turned. And when the camera came back around, the second guy was holding it on his shoulder, and he fired it. And the missile, it's heat-seeking, and people say, "Oh, it goes out for the exhaust." No, it goes for the engine. The engine's 4,000 degrees. The temperature of the exhaust is around 700. It's going straight to the motor. Well, for some reason, this missile actually hit the front end of the aircraft, like the cockpit, and the aircraft, it blew up the cockpit, and the aircraft pitched up, and it fell out of sight. Well, these Afghani guys lost their ever-loving minds when they saw this, because they realized they had this incredible weapon, and they started grabbing at them, and these guys there was a handful they were beating these guys up with these sticks to get them away from it. Well, during the course of this, while we were watching, the guy that fired the missile dropped it to his side, and now he's facing the camera, and somebody in the classroom goes, I'll make up a name, Hey, Bob, isn't that you? The instructor freezes the camera, freezes the frame, flips the light on, and the guy sitting next to me goes, he was a Green Beret. Now, people think Green Berets run around with a knife in their teeth, kill them. That they're not. A Green Beret is actually an instructor. They go behind enemy lines and set up like guerrilla armies. That's really their job. And he was next to me in the classroom, but he was like, yeah, maybe. So, by mere happenstance, I was sitting next to the guy that did the first Soviet helicopter kill with a Stinger missile ever. And I thought that just popped into my head randomly. Ah, wow, that was 33 years ago? Jeez, I'm old. Okay, and some of that stuff is all classified, but fortunately after 30 years, classifications actually fall away. All right, that was just random thought of the day. Thought I'd throw that out there. All right, you guys have fun. Take care.